is Ehud Itshaki, and I'm a Principal Program Manager in the Identity and Network Access Division. Microsoft fully supports Executive Order 14028 on improving the nation's cybersecurity. The Executive Order specifically calls to move to secure cloud services and implementing a zero-trust architecture. In this session, I'm going to cover the identity pillar requirements as laid out by the Office of Management and Budget Memorandum 22-09. Microsoft and Azure AD have a great story that can help meet the executive order requirement comprehensively. Microsoft has been advocating for Zero Trust for almost a decade and have helped thousands of customers to implement it. We are excited to see the government's deep commitment to Zero Trust architecture. Besides closely monitoring the executive order and the OMB Zero Trust memo, we have been partnering with National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, to develop implementation guidance by submitting position papers and contributing to communities of interest under the umbrella of the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. The Identity and Network Access Division at Microsoft is committed to delivering and maintaining parity of identity features between Azure Commercial and Azure US Gov. OMB Zero Trust Memo requires agencies to take the following identity-related actions. First action: agencies must employ centralized identity management systems for agency users that can be integrated into applications and common platform. This action calls for reducing identity silos and establishing single sign-on for resource access. Second action: agencies must use strong MFA throughout their enterprise. MFA must be enforced at the application layer instead of the network layer. For agency staff, contractors, and partners, phishing-resistant MFA is required. For public users, phishing-resistant MFA must be an option. And last, password policies must not require use of special characters or regular rotation. This action calls for explicitly validating access at the resource layer, moving from network layer, and strengthening the authentication process by enforcing phishing-resistant MFA, leading to higher assurance in the user's identity. Third action: when authorizing users to access resources, agencies must consider at least one device-level signal alongside identity information about the authenticated user. This action calls for enriching authorization decisions with device-based signals and leveraging multiple access control models such as role-based access control, attribute-based access control, and privileged access management. As laid out by CISA's Zero Trust Maturity Model, there are three themes cutting across the Zero Trust pillars: visibility and analytics, automation and orchestration, and governance. I will cover these themes in more details later in the presentation. Let's look at the first action. Azure AD is designed to be a centralized identity management system supporting Zero Trust. Agency users, staff, or contractors can sign into their corporate managed devices with a phishing-resistant MFA and get single sign-on without additional prompts onto on-premises and cloud resources or applications. Azure AD Application Gallery supports thousands of applications. This includes Microsoft clouds, both commercial and government, and non-Microsoft clouds. For applications and devices that are disconnected from Azure AD, we provide a suite of discovery tools to help identify and connect these applications and devices. Agency users can benefit from rich collaboration mechanisms, allowing them to work with their partners, also known as B2B users. Whether they are on the same Microsoft cloud, different Microsoft cloud, or coming from a non-Microsoft cloud. Let's look at the second action. Azure AD supports multiple phishing-resistant MFA methods: certificate-based authentication using PIV or CAC, FIDO2 security keys, Windows Hello for Business, and Microsoft Authenticator when used along with conditional access policy restricting access to be from a managed endpoint. PIV and CAC card have been the dominant phishing-resistant MFA method in federal agencies. Azure AD certificate-based authentication helps you eliminate your dependency on an on-premises federation infrastructure, and as a result, reduces operational complexity and security attack surface area. In addition, we are investing in certificate authentication from mobile devices when the certificate is stored in an external storage, such as FIDO2 security key, to provide for a true hardware-protected, phishing-resistant MFA. Agencies are encouraged to pursue greater use of passwordless MFA as they modernize their authentication system. However, when passwords are in use, they are a factor in multi-factor authentication. In accordance with NIST Special Publication 863b, agencies are required to remove password complexity and rotation policies in favor of automated detection and remediation mechanism for weak and compromised password. Azure AD provides this automated detection and remediation capabilities out of the box for both cloud and on-premises password stores. Let's look at the third action. Azure AD Conditional Access is a rich policy enforcement agent combining signals across users, devices, locations, and more. Azure AD offers a range of device-based signals that can be used for authorization decisions. This includes managed and compliant device via Intune or device compliance partners, and device threat signals from Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. These policies can extend to partners coming from other Azure AD tenants on Azure Commercial or on Azure Gov Clouds. Conditional access allows you to consistently manage advanced policies across the entire scope of resources and applications connected to Azure AD. Providing a more granular and dynamic access control can be done using Azure AD RBAC and ABAC. Azure AD RBAC allows assigning predefined or customized roles to users. Assignment using entitlement management can ease the burden of managing authorization by using self-service requests and automated functions. ABAC and RBAC can be used to allow or deny access by enforcing checks based on the user's identity, the attributes of the resource being accessed, and the environment at access time. For privileged access management, use CA policies to require MFA and other controls, privileged identity management, or PIM, to elevate permissions just in time, access reviews to maintain least privileged access, and audit reports to identify further improvements. Together, these capabilities ensure that the right users can access the right resources at the right time for the right reasons. Let's cover the three themes cutting across the Zero Trust pillars. For visibility and analytics, monitor Azure AD to adopt an assume breach mindset. Aggregate information from Azure AD about trends or security posture, compare to a previous baseline, and audit and generate reports on activity within Azure AD. For automation and orchestration, automate administration tasks using APIs and script. Use Azure Function or Azure Logic apps to automate remediation of alerts, and leverage managed identities to automate credential lifecycle management of applications. For governance, manage the lifecycle of external users. Configure onboarding approval flows, set up regular access reviews, and remove external users when they are done collaborating. Remove guests from groups and teams, and even guest accounts from Azure AD. Manage group memberships. make group self-service, and delegate approvals directly to business decision makers. For privileged access group, enforce owner eligibility with access reviews. Require approvals and multi-factor authentication to activate use of Azure AD and Azure resource roles. By reviewing roles and making assignment time-bound, you will help ensure only the right people have access to secure info and resources. And last, audit and generate reports on activity within Azure AD and learn whether people review access, who's getting privileged access, or flag suspicious activity tied to Azure AD or Azure resource roles. We are here to help you meet the executive order requirements. You can find detailed deployment guidance under aka.ms/Azure AD ZTEO. For further information, please contact your Microsoft representative. Thank you.